Hello, everybody. My name is Tushar Kansal, and I've been in finance field since a number of years, more than 2 decades. And it's I'm an avid reader, so I've always been reading 2 to 3 hours a day. And since many years, the agenda of climate and environment keeps on coming up. And it is not only in the reading that we see the agenda of climate and environment. You see all around you. There is freak weather, there is high temperatures, there is excess of rain happening, there is flood somewhere. So, we are living in a country, part of India, we are part of India, where 21 of the 30 top polluted cities are there. So I was born in a very small city which had a river and which had beautiful uh, mango plantations and a lot of nature. But growing up in a big city like Delhi and seeing a lot of pollution and a lot of environmental damage, it just pains me. So, environment and climate is a topic which has a lot of ironies. Now, what are the ironies? The irony is that everybody knows that something bad is happening to the climate or environment, but everybody feels it is somebody else's responsibility. Everybody feels that no, a lot of people know about what is the problem with it, climate and environment, but nobody feels that it is their responsibility to do something about it. So when COVID happened, I still remember we suddenly saw that the pollution went down by quite a lot, and we were able to see the stars at night, and we were able to see beautiful colors on the trees, and we suddenly realized, there were some cities in India where people started seeing the snow peaks because else they were obstructed by the pollution. So things like that made people realize that what kind of bad climate and environment we are living in. And we suddenly see the news in Europe, Rhine and Danube, the two rivers, the water levels have gone down, and shipping is seeing a problem. So we feel that, yeah, so we also see such kind of problems. We see the source of the Ganges River, which is a revered river in this part of the world, the source of the Ganges going back many kilometers. And then we read about the fact that in Kalimanjaro, which is the highest mountain in Africa, the snow has melted. So we connect with these people. We say this is happening to us also, and this is happening to them also. So it is not only their responsibility or our responsibility, it's everyone's responsibility. So the issue of climate and environment is a us all issue, but this it has to be tackled from the source, and the source is each one of us. So today I present to you my idea that what can we do to bring the topic of climate and environment from a us all issue to my issue, and what I can do about it as a person, what each of us can do about it as individuals. So recently, I saw that there was some drought which came on the Panama Canal side. Again, 50% of ships are only able to pass through. We see forest fires in California, and we see forest fires in Australia, and the heat in some parts of India crossing 50 degrees Celsius, and there are heat waves. And so this weather phenomena has a number of reasons, and I'm sure that all the literature is out there why this problem is there. But what can we do to tackle it? As a part of a culture which goes a long way, the Indian culture, the Indic way of thought, I thought about it and I came to the conclusion that climate and environment needs to be revered more than just understood. You have to understand, if you worship a spiritual figure, if you worship some god, then you also have to know you are also a product of the environment. So you have to worship the environment as well. Now, how can you bring environment and culture to the center stage? Now, first of all, let us see some evidence. a report from UN University says that the Earth is facing 6 tipping points. What are these tipping points? First is extinctions. The animals, a lot of species are going extinct. The groundwater is getting depleted, especially in India. In some states, the electricity has been provided for free for farmers, and they use that electricity to for bore wells to bring out groundwater and use them in agriculture. So that is leading to depletion of groundwater. The third is melting mountain glaciers. It's the evidence is out there that glaciers all around the world are melting very fast. There is evidence in Antarctica also, but we are living in a part of Asia where 40% of the world's freshwater rivers they originate from the Himalayan plateau, and the glaciers are going back in the Himalayan plateau as well. Then there is another fourth tipping point, which is a space debris. So everybody is sending satellites to space. But the fact is, what happens after the satellite completes its life? There is no system of bringing back that debris to the Earth or sending it outside the orbit. So, in the well defined orbits like 36,000 kilometer, which is a geosynchronous orbit, there is a lot of space debris. And some countries have conducted anti satellite tests, which leaves a lot of debris again in the orbits. Then the fifth tipping point is there is unbearable heat. We see heat waves. It is very London saw a heat wave last year, and some of our people living there were certifying that they have never seen such a heat wave. Then the sixth is that in case of the environment, a large part of the future is uninsurable. What it means is that the damage will be so huge that no insurance company can cover it. So, how do you rectify any damage to the environment if the insurance company itself says we can't cover it because it is too huge? So, that is the sixth tipping point. Now, what is my idea? My idea is that the discussions and the narrative which is being set in media, in government, in corporate boardrooms, in scientific community, in industry bodies, the narrative is being said there. So the solutions are also being said there, and more or less there are top-down solutions. I'll give you an example. You build a dam on a river which has salmon fish. Now the salmon fish goes to the sea and it has to come back the river to its originating point to to give their babies. So once the dam is built, how will the salmon go back? So I saw in one of the scientific videos that they created a suction machine where they push the fish back to the upstream river. Now I thought it is a typical top-down solution because first you build a dam and then you have to do this thing. So instead of that, why don't you build only dams which are suitable for salmon river to go upstream? Then I saw some video where some balls were being sent onto a lake so that the lake doesn't dry. It again looked like a top-down solution to me. So what I mean to say is there has to be natural solutions, and the natural solutions will happen if the issue of environment is not seen as us all issue, but if the issue of the environment is seen as me issue and an issue in which I can play a role. Because the problem is the source. If each one of us is using plastic, then it is adding up, and it is adding up to a monstrous problem for the climate and environment. If each of us are using groundwater excessively, then it is adding up, and end result is very bad for the climate and environment. So the source is the problem. Then right now, each human has to understand that over exploitation of nature is happening, and a behavior change is needed. I come from India, where again it's an ancient thought and ancient culture, and in many parts of India, the environment and some animals, they are revered, they are worshipped. So what happens is that one tends to have a sense of reverence for environment and for the animal part of the world. Um, I feel that to shift the narrative from these institutions, the corporate boardrooms, to a bottom up kind of solution, it has to shift to spiritual institutions, to communities, to social bodies like the NGOs, non government organizations. Uh, if we have seen what is happening with the Paris Accord, it was signed, a lot of countries came together and some targets were set. But end of the day, many countries have not completed their obligations under the Paris Accord. So top down can continue. The top down, like creating solar power, creating wind power, desalination plants, they can continue. But the narrative has to move to an individual, which can only happen if the narrative moves from these places to the community centers, to the schools, to the colleges, to the educational institutions. Now, how is environment not everybody's responsibility, but each individual's responsibility? As I said, you use fast fashion. Now, fast fashion is, it gets, you want to change your dress after 3 months to 6 months. What happens is that all those fashion which you throw away, that waste, it leaves a mark on the environment. So there is microplastics in the oceans, and a lot of marine life has been found to have these microplastics. Then, as I said, groundwater. The Central Groundwater Board of India has said that around 17% of groundwater blocks in India are overexploited. 17%. And we are talking about groundwater levels going down. Then, as per UN, because of over exploitation of like use of synthetic fertilizers, livestock farming, and land use changes, it results in release of methane and nitrous oxide, which are both greenhouse gases. This is as per UN. And as per Princeton University and National Geographic, we generate waste and we use plastic. End of the day, these are very detrimental to the flora and fauna. Now, how can this idea be implemented? I'm not saying you create a idol of some environment god or some animal and you start worshipping it. It doesn't have to be that way. But what can happen is that every society has some spiritual guides, some people they look up to, some heroes, some people they really listen to. So these influencers, these mentors, these people, they should be drawn in. Like the spiritual guides can be drawn in to realize that, to make people realize that you don't have to only think that spiritual well being is just your mental peace. It is also about your actions which contribute to the environment and potentially can degrade the environment. So they have to educate people that the blessings of environment is needed for each of one of us to survive, and indeed our future generations to survive as well. And we can celebrate things like reforestation happened in a big way in Japan. And if we are celebrating that reforestation in the schools in Japan, then naturally the next generation will have a very good consciousness of the fact that we have to take care of the environment. Second, the local communities. We have certain communities here in India. What they do is that when they meet up, so uh, they construct small lakes for the groundwater to go up, the groundwater level to go up. They construct a lot of things which benefit the animal kingdom. For example, they do reforestation. So the local communities have to go hand in hand with the municipal corporations, with the arms of the government to create such potential infrastructure which aids the redevelopment of the environment, which stops the degradation of the climate. For example, you can keep a large part of a land near a village as an exclusive area for birds to come in and reforest the whole area. And the schools and colleges, they can also play a role that they instill the value of the environment and climate. Maybe you can, as a school principal or as the dean, you can keep higher marks for subjects such as climate and environment and make them mainstream subjects. Then the next is, I'll give you some examples of how environment is revered in this part of the world. I'll give a verse from a very old ancient Indic text, which is Skanda Purana, and the shloka 4 says that Nain ched yenne de dahe nashu aksheta sarvada raksheta vrakshasya vriddhi phalitva cha yo janati sa moksh labte dhruva sa moksh labte dhruvam. Now, this shloka means that do not cut down the tree, do not burn it, do not let it dry out. Always protect it. He who knows the growth and fruitfulness of the tree, he will surely attain liberation. He will surely attain liberation. Lokaha samasta sukhina bhavantu, which can be translated to may all beings be happy, may all beings be without disease. This is an example of an ancient verse which tries to instill the value of environment and a reverence for the environment. Then there are some more examples. In an island of Bali, Indonesia, you see people worshipping the forests and rivers. In a large part of the Western world, moose, which is an animal, people hold it sacred. And Christmas tree is seen as sacred in many countries. Now in Japan, a large part of the people there, they worship the nature. And there are worshipping of many animals in Indic thought, like the cow, monkey, and elephant. Now, how this idea could affect you if you accept it? If the top-down approach becomes bottom-up, if being an issue which others should solve it because it is an us all issue, it becomes a me issue. The focus will move on from something someone else will do it to I will do it, and let us do our part. And you and I can go out again, breathe good oxygen, and see the beautiful effect of nature. So today, let us take a solemn vow that let each one of us shift the narrative of the environment from government bodies, corporate bodies, back to communities, back to the spiritual centers, back to places where each one of us can play our role. I, as a teacher, will devote a topic of environment in all my teachings. I, as an administrator, religious figure, will position climate and environment studies at the forefront of mainstream narrative building in community halls, religious and spiritual institutions. I, as a social welfare institution, a non-government organization, will position climate and environment studies at the forefront of our work. So this is my thought, and thank you so much for having me today here.